Okay, it sounds like someone started the recording. Is that correct? So we will be recording tonight's program. And so finally, to mention, of course, Rutgers Cooperative Extension is an equal opportunity program provided for everyone. And there's some information on the screen there if you would like more information about our equal opportunity program. So with that being said, let me just check the recording. Okay, it is recording. So I'd like to introduce our speaker for tonight. Our speaker is Nandini Checko, who is a project director at the Association of New Jersey Environmental Commissions, or ANJEC, as we call it. Nandini leads the plastic pollution reduction program at ANJEC. She has led numerous workshops and authored several articles on the hazards of plastic pollution. She was heavily involved in building the coalition that worked to strengthen the statewide plastic pollution reduction law. Along with plastics reduction, Nandini works on other local environmental topics such as food waste and stormwater management. She holds a master's degree from Columbia University in organizational development and a bachelor's degree from the School of Business at Rutgers University. Nandini is also a board member of the Lower Raritan Watershed Partnership and loves hiking and listening to storytelling podcasts. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Nandini.
Thanks so much, Sal. I really appreciate that introduction.
Sure, I'm going to open up the poll, so I'll leave that up for a few minutes, but that's just the one question about who all you are in the audience. So if you wouldn't mind, those in the audience, just answer the one question. Thanks. Oh, sorry, that's not the right one.
I was going to say, a little too soon.
Let me try again. Okay, let's try this one. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. I am definitely curious on who else is as passionate about plastics as much as me, that on a gorgeous fall evening, you're joining this conversation. Are we ready to close out the poll, Sal?
You can take a look at the results as they come in.
Okay.
But you can get started if you want.
Okay, I don't actually see anything on my screen.
Okay. So let's see. So looks like pretty much most people have answered. You got about 40% of others. You got about 30% Rutgers Master Gardeners, 10% environmental stewards from Rutgers, 13% educators, 6% student.
Ah, that's fantastic. Just for my own curiosity, those folks that are at 40% others, I'd love to know what other that is, perhaps just general public. So that's great. Thank you. Thanks, guys. I appreciate that. So I just want to share a little bit more on who ANJEC is. Sounds like there's some people here that won't know who we are. So we are, as Sal mentioned, the Association of New Jersey Environmental Commissions, and we are a statewide nonprofit environmental group that's 52 years old. And you can see from this chart here, this is how we fit in. There's the municipal government, there's the environmental commission. So these folks are volunteers, they're your neighbors and friends in your community that work as local stewards for your town. And we support those folks at ANJEC. Really just other green team members, other municipal officials, really just all those folks working on local environmental issues. So here, as I said, we are here to protect and restore New Jersey's natural resources. Environmental commissioners are established through enabling legislation. So we definitely work in an advisory capacity with with municipal officials. So I'm going to do something a little different, which is to show this video. The video is 4 minutes and 4 minutes long. It's an excellent primer on why plastics is a problem. So I am going to share that now, and I'm also going to show off, shut off my videos, my own personal video. All right. Actually, hang on. I am just switching to another screen. If I can find it. All right.
Heard about a giant trash island in the ocean, or that poor sea turtle and the straw. Maybe you've even heard how plastic is being found inside the fish we eat. The plastic crisis gets a lot of attention, but the headlines usually focus on the plastic that ends up in the environment, and that's just lot of pollution. Pollution that most often affects marginalized communities nearby. As we've gotten better about using less oil and gas to power our lives, the fossil fuel industry found a lifeline in plastics. In fact, oil and gas companies are doubling down on plastic production, with plans to build or expand over 300 petrochemical plants in the US alone by 2025. But these companies already produce more plastic than we can use. So where's all that plastic going? A lot of it's flowing into new markets in places like Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Because more than any other product category, plastic isn't driven by the demand for it, but by the supply. Corporations like Unilever, Nestle, and Procter & Gamble are aggressively marketing single-use plastic products around the world. These companies go to places like Indonesia, where I live, and push their products onto communities that just aren't prepared to deal with all that plastic. Maybe they're used to using natural packaging. Maybe they live on a tiny island without a system of waste collection. And on top of that, countries in the global north are shipping their own plastic waste into these countries too. When you add that all up, it's no wonder so much of this plastic ends up in the environment. And globally, that's where a whopping 32% of plastic packaging ends up. 40% goes to a landfill, where plastic just piles up for future generations to deal with. And 14% is incinerated. Incineration is a nasty business, producing toxic smoke and fly ash. These super expensive facilities depend on plastic to burn everything else. It is oil and gas after all. So they want to see more plastic, not less. Then there's recycling. Unfortunately, it's not the solution that many people think it is. Just 14% of plastic packaging gets recycled, and only 2% is effectively recycled, meaning it becomes something as useful as before. The rest is downcycled into something worse. And most recycled plastic is only recycled once before ending up in landfills, incinerators, or the environment anyway. So it turns out that we can't burn, bury, or recycle our way out of this problem. And we can't just scoop all that plastic out of the environment either. That's like trying to bail out a bathtub with a teaspoon while the tap is on full blast. So how about we turn off the tap by shutting down the plastic machine? That means passing policies that create systemic change, like phasing out the single-use plastics that pollute the most, ending the fossil fuel subsidies that are fueling big plastic, and holding companies responsible for the plastic waste they create. That's how we can achieve our vision of a zero-waste future, where all of our products and packaging can be reused or repaired, effectively recycled or composted, and ultimately how we create a sustainable circular economy that works for both people and the planet. Visit storyofplastic.org to learn more and take action.
All right, let me just go back to my screen here with the slides. How fantastic was that? That's definitely,
Those emotions.
oops, sorry.
They were put on hold by time, like careers being built.
Sorry.
And a Virgo beat.
Sounds good now.
Can folks hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay, sorry about that. I think that my video went to the next next thing, so that's what was happening there. Apologize. So that was an excellent video as a primer from the story of plastic, and there's a lot to unpack from that video. So really, for plastic from a generation to waste is a public health crisis that's connected to climate change, environmental justice, marine, wildlife health, and human health problems. As you can see here, there is a lot of problems with plastics from a human health problem situation here. It's truly a crisis here because plastics don't degrade. They just break down into smaller and smaller pieces called microplastics. And these toxic chemicals are in our water, in our air, and in our food. So, wow, I'm sure you've heard the statistic that a garbage truck of plastics is dumped into our oceans every minute. And half the plastic that's ever been produced has happened in the last 15 years. This is a solvable problem because we did this and, we just produced all this plastic just in the last 15 years. So this is something that we can help solve, especially single-use plastics. And of course, this phrase here, by 2050, by weight, there's going to be more plastic or equal amounts plastic to fish in our oceans, unless we do something, which is absolutely frightening. So I am thrilled here in New Jersey that we are dealing with this issue. Back in November 2020, Governor Murphy signed into law the nation's strictest single-use plastic pollution reduction law. And this is the trifecta. So single-use plastic, those are items that are used once and done. They make up about 36% of plastic packaging. So here's the basics about the law. So all single-use plastic carryout bags are banned. So those are the bags you get at the checkout counters at ShopRites and Targets. Polystyrene foam food service products are banned. So those are the styrofoam, that's the common name for takeout containers. And plastic straws are going to be upon request. So if the grocery store is above 2,500 square feet, paper carryout bags are banned as well. So this is really going to force folks to bring reusables, and that is the goal. And also to educate folks on how much plastic they actually consume. And if a grocery store size is under 2,500 square feet, paper carryout bags are free. So that is the basics here. Straws are going to be starting November 4th, 2021. And then bags and styrofoam will start on May 4th, 2022. So may the force be with us. So some questions that people ask about this new law. And feel free to throw questions into the chat box, and Sal will share those questions and I'll be happy to talk about it. So there's a state law override local ordinances. So we are so lucky here in New Jersey. And one of the reasons we're able to push the state law forward is because over 130 local municipalities pass local ordinances. So if you currently have a bag law, plastic bag law, that stays in effect until May 4th, and then the state law goes into effect. So the definition of a reusable bag is that it's made of polypropylene fabric, non-woven fabric, nylon, and cloth, and that it has stitched handles. That stitched handles is really important. You'll see that there, and the reason for that is the stitch handles are the ones that last a lot longer. I have bags that I've had for literally 15, 18 years. These reusable bags that can be washed and used multiple times, and the stitched handles make a big difference. As far as funding sources for education and reusable bag giveaways, New Jersey Clean Communities, they have already started their educational program through a program called Bag Up NJ, and they are doing a lot of education on the new law. And municipalities can use their own municipal recycling tonnage and Clean Communities grants to pay for reusable bags. And I know that the Clean Communities grant funding for towns this year is very high, and it's fantastic because you can use it for the bags. Penalties: any business violating the bill would get a first warning on the offense, and then it goes up pretty steep, which is fantastic. It goes up to $5,000 for a third of subsequent offense. And those penalty funds are distributed where 70% goes to the state for the Clean Communities Fund, and 30% stays with the municipality. Enforcement is going to be handled by the DEP for bags and styrofoam, and the Department of Health enforces the plastic straw provision. So, but the municipality is involved, and we all have to stay, we really need to pay attention and make sure that the restaurants and businesses are doing what they're meant to be doing. There are definitely a lot of bags that are allowed. So those bags that you use for picking up produce, the spinach and the oranges and apples, that's totally fine. So bags for fish and such, that's going to be acceptable as well. Laundry bags, etc., newspaper bags, those are going to be still allowed. Oops. Okay, along in the law, there is going to be a plastic advisory council, and these are the members. So unfortunately, the council members have not been assigned yet, and we're still waiting on that. But the folks on this council, they have to check the effectiveness of the law and make sure that it's doing what it's meant to be doing, and evaluate its effectiveness. All right, as I said, the DEP does have a lot of resources out right now. The first one here is from the DEP, and it's all about the plastic ban law. And for businesses, the New Jersey Business Action Center, which is part of the state, they are actively have a supplier list for alternatives to styrofoam and plastic bags. So that's what that other website, the business.nj.gov /backstack vendors. And what's also really great is they are offering free roundtable conversations for any business or restaurant that has questions on how to comply with the new law. So if you go on their website, there's a ton of information there. And Jack has also created a website, and it's very basic. It's NewJerseyNoPlastics.org. And we have an FAQ for residents, municipalities, and businesses, as well as additional resources. And for example, on the right-hand side of your screen, this is a downloadable flyer that you can certainly take into your community. This law is going to need all of us to make it happen, because we have to get out there and spread the word for sure. Okay, so I love this. As I said, the plastic straws upon request, that starts November 4th. And this is a campaign that Jersey City is running called No Straw November. So the US consumes 500 million straws a day, which is amazing. So that's 182 billion straws a year. And like I mentioned, you know, over 80% of ocean plastic is land-based, and street litter enters storm drains and dumps into the local waterways and eventually out into the oceans as well. So these clogged storm drains also cause street flooding, and we've certainly seen that recently with Tropical Storm Henri and Hurricane Ida. And now, as we're entering the fall season, just as a PSA here, please don't push your leaves and yard waste into the storm drains, because that clogs the storm drains as well. So we want to keep the drains as clear as possible. But I thought this was just a fantastic promotion and campaign Jersey City is running. I'm not sure how many of you know this, but the US is the largest generator of plastic trash of any country in the world. Maybe this is not a surprise. We also consume a lot. And we're the largest exporter of plastic scrap to countries with inadequate waste management systems. And that's a little bit of what we saw in the video as well. So really, there's no way Americans generate 4 pounds of trash a day, which is a lot. We are really the United States of plastic. Sal, I'm going to stop here and see if there are any questions you'd like me to answer.
Okay, sure. We've got a few coming in.
Okay, great.
So Leanne asked, styrofoam was quote unquote banned 35 years ago, and they're still around. I'm not familiar with what happened 35 years ago with that. But I guess the question is, you know, is there a solution here? Is this going to help?
I'm not familiar with what happened 35 years ago either, but the solution this time is really reusables, and that is the focus. So there are two different types of polystyrene. One is called EPS, and that is the clean white styrofoam that's used for packaging, like what you see for, you know, when you package like computers and microwaves that come in this white packaging. So that's not part of the law, and that's going to still stay. We're talking about the styrofoam that's used for takeout containers. So that's styrene, and that is obviously cancerous, especially when it's heated up, and that's what we're trying to avoid. And we are very focused on saying yes to reusables and looking for that as the way to deal with this going forward.
Okay, thanks. So Gregory asked if you could clarify what's going to happen in November with drinking straws. Like you won't get one unless you request it.
That's right. That's right. And I don't know about all of you, you know, it really frustrates me when I go to a restaurant and I order water and it comes with a straw, but I order a glass of wine and it doesn't come with anything. So that's very confusing, right? So yes, but this is also going to be for like Dunkin' Donuts, you know, all of those should be straws upon request only. So I encourage you to bring your own metal straw or encourage the restaurants to provide alternatives. And there's a huge variety of alternatives, from paper straws to bamboos to lots of different versions of straws that could be used. Pasta straws, those are pretty cool.
Okay, and that affects all the drive-throughs too. So
yes, it
if
does.
you're going through fast food, you'll have to ask for a straw if you wanted one.
Yes.
But you're probably better off just keeping one in your car, a reusable one.
Absolutely, I do that.
So here's a question so this is a question from Carol, something I was thinking about as well, which is people often reuse those plastic bags from grocery stores for trash in their house. You know, maybe like the I don't know. I've heard of people scooping cat litter into them, although they tend to have holes in them, so I don't like that. But for example, in the bathroom,
Sure,
the waste basket there, they're good for a liner there that's reused.
sure.
So I guess the
Yeah.
question, the question is kind of, do we think people are going to be buying more plastic bags to use for those situations?
That's a really good question, Carol. So I think the average American uses about 500 single-use plastic carry-out bags. In New Jersey alone, we're looking at 4 billion plastic carry-out bags per year. That's a really big number. And when you grab a plastic bag from a local bodega, you might step out and take the drink out, the candy bar, whatever, and then toss that bag. And that bag ends up in the natural environment. So when you have a bag of bags, you start paying attention to how many plastic bags you use for liners, and you consider the cost of it as well. So it's going to change consumption practices. And it's been very successful internationally in reducing litter. This has been studied and proven over and over and again. Start looking for alternatives, like using bread bags for cat litter. That's what I do. I have 2 cats and I use my bread bags rather than, a grocery store bag. Mm-hmm.
All right, thanks. There's kind of a follow-up question on the drive-through. So the question from Gregory was, doesn't Dunkin' Donuts have tops that require a straw? And then there was also a question from Leanne about if you ask for a straw, is it still going to be a plastic straw? I mean, do you foresee some places, maybe drive-throughs, having alternative straws?
Possibly down the road. I do anticipate that there's going to be alternatives. And I also know that especially major chains like Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, when you have so many states within the US, from California to New York to New Jersey to Massachusetts, all having this sort of regulation, it is the big chains know it's coming, it's here, and they're changing their ways. Like, for example, just today, I heard that McDonald's will no longer give out those little toys, plastic toys for kids in their Happy Meals. Which is fantastic. So they know, and they're working on those changes.
Okay, and was the driver for using more plastic bags, do you suppose, simply the cost to stores and such, in terms of like the difference between plastic and paper?
Yes, paper does cost more, for sure. But I don't know if you remember, that used to be a big conversation, paper or plastic, what's better? And
Right.
honestly, neither are better. Paper is very energy extensive. It takes a lot of water and chemicals to turn trees into paper. And then once you recycle them, take them back out and make them back into something else. So they're both incredibly, they both use a lot of energy. So neither is great. And that was the reasoning why single-use paper bags are also banned.
Okay. There's a question, do you have a projection on how much waste will be reduced in the state due to this ban?
No, I don't. That's a really good question. These are all great. No, I don't. Hopefully, once that advisory council is fully nominated and it's working, maybe we can get some of those answers. But I anticipate, like, if you just walk down the street, just today, I was sharing right before this call, I went for a walk with my husband. It was such a beautiful day. And I picked up 4 plastic water bottles just on the street. There's a lot of plastic litter that's just in our natural environment. So I do anticipate a big drop in that.
Okay, there's another question about funding. Is there any funding available? So you mentioned some educational resources for companies, but is there funding available for So for example, like a restaurant to replace their plastic bags, their styrofoam takeout containers, that kind of thing.
I don't know of any funding that's available right now for restaurants. I do know that they should contact the New Jersey Business Action Center, and let me just drop their website up here. It's on the bottom, business.nj.gov, and sign up to see what the state recommends and sign up for the vendor alternate list. So they'll provide you with a list of suppliers and products.
All right. I guess I had one question that came to my mind, which is at least some stores I've been to since the COVID pandemic started, I believe we're not letting customers bring their reusable bags. Do you have any thoughts on how those two needs are going to interplay in the future?
I don't anticipate any problems because it has been shown that reusable bags are safe, and reusables in general are safe. And it's not a COVID sensitivity. You know, certainly we want to take every consideration for health. So if the cashier is not comfortable bagging your groceries, you have an option of bagging your own groceries or putting your groceries in the cart and taking them to your car and bagging them there. So I don't anticipate any problems. You know, when you have large chains like Costco and Aldi that don't provide any bags, they still do a tremendous amount of business. I really do think that people are going to get used to this model of bringing their own bags. We just have to keep reminding folks, bring your own bags. And you can certainly buy bags once you get to the store if you forgot yours.
That's true. Okay, so we'll move on to the rest of the talk, and then we'll have time for more questions. In case I missed your question, please pop it in the chat again. But I will just also mention, Carl did mention Save Coastal Wildlife as an organization dedicated to education and research on the New Jersey coast.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, there's a lot of great work being done. I really can't say enough about bringing reusables. That's really going to be the key to breaking the habit of single-use plastics. You know, like I said, this is a solvable problem. It's just been created in the last 15 years, and we can do this for sure. All right, I'm just going to share a few more slides. All right, so what's the real deal with recycling plastics? And this is a question that comes up pretty often because, you know, at the end of the day, plastic is a resource because it's primarily made with fossil fuels that are non-renewable. But these chasing arrow symbols, these labels can be they are deceptive, unfortunately. So plastic is a commodity, and think of it as gold. It's only worth what people are willing to pay for it. And there is value in recycling. And I'll tell you why, because there's a ton of there's a ton of plastic, right? And we need the recycled plastic to create new products. So that recycled content is really needed to move us away from, you know, all this virgin plastic. You know, the key here is to confirm what your county accepts. And right now, for the most part, most counties accept definitely 1s and 2s. And some counties even accept 5s. But most of everything else is not acceptable right now through recycling. So what's also key is that we recycle properly. We have to make sure they're empty, they're rinsed, and they're dry. And when we do that, we know that we have high quality plastics that can be reused. Certainly no plastic bags or film. And if you guys want more information, I watched this Earth Day, Earth Every Day, right? Am I saying that right? Earth Every Day.
Earth Day every day.
Earth Day every day. Thanks, Al. Webinar with Amy Cook-Menzel on recycling basics that was posted on November 2nd. You can find that on their website. It's fantastic. And she explains more. But it is important to recycle for sure, but recycle correctly. All right. So what else can you do? Vote with your wallet, choose products with recycled content, and support those businesses and restaurants that are working on reducing plastic. Say yes to reusables. I always carry a reusable kit with me with a straw, a knife, a fork, a spoon, and a bag. And that comes in really handy. Definitely say no to extra utensils and extras when ordering takeout. You know, a lot of us are doing that. You know, one of my, like my favorite go-to restaurant, this local Indian restaurant, I have to say, hey, don't add any more, knives or forks. I got everything because I'm doing this at home. And I see, I see a poll that just dropped up. So educate your family and friends and tell them how this is an environmental justice issue. Definitely spread the message of no littering, and just in overall, we need to reduce consumption in this country for sure. So here's another great website. This is from New Jersey Clean Communities. It's bagupnj.com. I recommend that you check them out. They also have a whole bunch of downloadable resources that you can take with you as you go about living your life in your town and go to different restaurants and such. All right. So what's next here in New Jersey, now that we passed this law, which is super exciting, we are now working pretty hard on a recycled content bill. And that's encouraging more recycled post-consumer content in items such as trash bags to rigid containers to plastics. We'd love to have a bottle bill. We're working on banning the intentional outdoor balloon releases. And there's a federal bill called Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act, which is very comprehensive. It's a fantastic federal bill. And then there are towns like Maplewood, New Jersey, that has a fantastic ordinance called Skip the Stuff. So the Skip the Stuff is that those additional things like chopsticks, extra Taco Bell hot sauces that you don't need, those sort of things. You can just say, no, thank you. And they have an ordinance that encourages skipping all those extras. All right, and this is my information. You can contact me here at nchecko@njec.org if you have any more questions after this. And you can certainly watch our videos. We have quite a few of them on our YouTube channel, NJEDEP Views. So that's what I have so far. So we have plenty of time for me to answer more questions because this is where the good stuff is.
Great, thanks. That was terrific. Very interesting. We do have some questions coming in, and yes, the final poll is up. It's only 8 questions, so you should be able to access that whether you're on a computer or a phone. And if you wouldn't mind filling that in, I'd love to know your opinions on that.
So I'm going to do a stop share.
Okay. Okay, so oh yeah, one thing I wanted to mention is on recycling plastics or recycling in general. I'm coming from Cumberland County, and we do think of our recycling here as a source of revenue for the county, basically. So one thing to keep in mind is that, at least here the way it works, and I'm sure it's similar throughout the state, is if you don't recycle correctly, all the stuff that ends up being trash in some way either gets shipped back to your county facility or you get charged for, right? So all the things that end up in the recycling bin that can't be recycled, they're of no value to anybody else. So it ends up costing you money as a as a resident or as a taxpayer anyway. So it's definitely, if you can't educate yourself about how to recycle correctly, it's actually, it's a benefit to your community in terms of just dollars and cents.
That's a good point.
So one question came up, thinking about department stores as
Mhm.
opposed to, say, grocery stores or fast food restaurants. How are they affected with the plastic bag ban?
They cannot give out plastic bags. No Macy's, no Home Goods, nope. No, all stores, all restaurants, all stores, no more single-use plastic carryout bags.
Okay.
It's the grocery stores over 2,500 square feet that also cannot give out single-use paper bags, but nobody in New Jersey can give out plastic bags.
Okay. How about other plastics? You mentioned that 1 and 2s tend to be recycled kind of throughout the state. With the other plastics, is there any future plans to make those recyclable or to phase those out in any way?
That's a really good question. The real plan, honestly, is for manufacturers to take responsibility for the full cycle of their product. Because at the end of the day, you don't want that container for the shampoo, you want what's inside. So that's called extended producer responsibility, which is part of the federal bill. And in New Jersey, we are working on that as well to see how we can encourage truth in recycling labels, as well as making manufacturers take responsibility.
Okay. And the follow-up question there was, what can people do to encourage manufacturers to not use packaging or containers that are not recyclable?
The best thing to do is give them a call, let them know I'm a consumer. I want to continue to using your products and this isn't working for me. And there are products that are coming to market that have this concept. Like, for example, there's a company called Loop, which is part of TerraCycle. And there you can order items I think they work with Head and Shoulders, so you can get a very, very pretty bottle of Head and Shoulders, and the bottle, that's great because it's made with steel. And then when you're running out, you just order more and you get the actual product. It's not, it's not the plastic that you have to throw away. It comes in a beautiful container.
That sounds good.
And then I see a few questions here, Sal. I'm just going to jump in as I see.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so Barb asked, are businesses getting this information now? Yes, they are. But they could be getting them through their local chamber of commerce or through their professional organization. New Jersey Food Council is providing information, but we need as many people as possible to talk about this. And definitely should get those downloadable resources and take it out to your local businesses and let them know this is coming down the pipe. All right, question here, what websites and stores promote plastic-free products? There are a couple of exciting stores. I think there's one in Maplewood that's a bulk food store. So it's bulk products. So you bring your own mason jars and bags and you fill it up and you're good to go. So there are even on Amazon shipping. I got to tell you, you can find products like there's that promotes plastic-free products. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Sal.
Okay, so there's a question about what to do about single-use water bottles as a replacement.
As a replacement of single-use, bring your own reusable water bottle is what I would recommend for multiple reasons. First is the quality of the water. There's many tests that have been done, and there's a lot of microplastics in bottled water. And more often than not, bottled water, all it is filtered municipal tap water. So if you consider all the resources it takes to make that plastic for the water bottle, you drink it in about 10, 12 minutes and it gets tossed. And then, it's just not even a healthier option. So I would recommend reusable water bottle to the best of your ability.
And I think it's a separate question, but just the question was simply recycle caps, which I assume has to do with, maybe caps in general on bottles and things that we try to recycle.
Right, sure. So the thing with bottle caps is sometimes it's made from a different type of plastic than the bottle itself. So that type of plastic sometimes is not recyclable. So it depends on your county. I live in Somerset County, and caps are not allowed on the bottles, but that's where I would recommend that you check what your recycling center says, your local recycling center, caps on or caps off, but most often it's caps off.
Yep, that's what I understand. So there's a question, are paper bags okay for a place like a pizza takeout?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so paper bags will be allowed in pretty much everywhere except for grocery stores over 2,500 square feet.
Here's an interesting question. So you can sell styrofoam cups. For example, they sell them, in the dollar store and Walmart, wherever. So you're still going to be allowed to sell them?
I have to put a question mark on that question. Yes, I believe so. I'll find out. I'll get back to whoever asked me that question.
Okay. There was a comment, caps on now in Ocean County. So I can't confirm that. But yeah, it's one of those things you just have to keep up with your local recycling guidelines, to what they take and what they don't take. Oh, here's an interesting one. Plastics are often part of tea bags. Is anyone looking at those?
Yes, actually, there's a great organization called beyondplastics.org, and they were running a campaign about tea bags, and that they are looking into that as well. So it depends on who the manufacturer of the teas are. So if you go on the website, beyondplastics.org, they can help, you can take a look. I know I drink a lot of tea, and I contacted a few of my faves, like Tetley tea. I drink a lot of Tetley tea, and they're like, no, we're good. We don't put that in our plastic. We don't use plastic for our closures. So that's a really good question. I see somebody asking for our Facebook page. It should be Anjac. Oh, let me put it on. It's just Anjac, actually. ANJCE. If you want, you can connect with me. I'm going to drop my email into the chat, and feel free to contact me and I can set you up. How can you, coffee pods, are those recyclable? No, they're not. Coffee pots are not that I know of.
And I bet we use an awful lot of them.
Yes, we use a lot of everything. That's why we really just need to reduce consumption.
Right, and that's kind of it's kind of an interesting thread through a lot of these questions when you start thinking about little things like tea bags that you wouldn't normally expect to have, say, plastic in it.
Yeah.
And on the other side, we use plastics for things that are life-saving, like medical devices, like things that are implanted into your body to keep your arteries open, or artificial hearts, or these kind of things.
For sure. I mean, right now, look at us. We're using plastic to even communicate, right? Our laptops or smartphones. Plastic is not going away. We're talking about something very specific, which is single-use plastic. And that's the stuff that we can really we can do better. And that's going to make a big dent in helping our crisis we have right now.
Right. And I heard someone once say, like, oil is too valuable to burn, thinking just about how valuable it could be if turned into certain types of plastics. And, we might think of plastic the same way. Like, if plastic is too valuable to make a single-use bag out of and throw it in the garbage, when it could be used to, save someone's life instead.
That's a good point. Absolutely.
There's a question about glass recycling. Glass is no longer accepted at any recycling centers within 25 miles of my home.
Well, that is disappointing. I learned from watching Amy's presentation that there's actually a large glass recycling plant that's coming up in Andover, New Jersey. So perhaps that's going to change. But I know that just in general, part of that recycled content bill we're working on for the state will have glass as a component.
Right. And glass is, I mean, getting back to sort of the economics of this thing, glass is one of those things that's fairly valuable as a recyclable because it's relatively easy to turn back into a glass product. Right. And metals are like that as well. If you ever throw some large aluminum pieces out on the roadside, and they'll disappear instantly because they're relatively valuable. But a lot of the plastics, the economic value of those is variable. There's been times in the past decades where recycled plastic is worth a lot, and there's times where it's not worth as much. So that really drives, the way a lot of this works. It's driven by the economics.
That's right.
Is it worth it to collect the stuff and recycle it?
And there's a lot of pressure right now on companies to do better and do no harm. And that's really where we have to head. So I anticipate more aluminum cans coming our way. I anticipate more recycled content. In fact, there are companies out there like Snapple that has 100% recycled content bottle, except for the bottle cap and the paper sleeve. No, I'm sorry, not the paper sleeve, but there's, I'm sorry, except for the cap. And that's phenomenal that Snapples can do that. So if they can do it, why can't other companies do it? And the reason they can do it is what's going to help them is that they have, good recycled plastic available to turn it into something else.
All right, so we'll wrap up in just a minute here. Just maybe a quick few questions, comments. There's a store, it was mentioned, Refill Market, where you can get refills of things like laundry detergent, shampoos, and so on.
Yeah, that's great. And then there was a question in here, how can you reach people who come off as resistant towards change, like no plastic bag and straws? So here, I think it's just, it's a matter of educating them, like how many straws are used every day by Americans. And, just stopping and thinking, why do you need a straw to drink water at a restaurant when you don't use one at home? It could be, and I really think that just people are extremely resilient, where there's been these laws in other states. The first month is tricky, people push back, but they get used to it. I mean, look at us now. We're wearing masks when we go out, but nobody expected to do that a year ago. So I do anticipate that, this is a passionate response on plastics. What can we do to reduce it, reduce the consumption? And this is part of the solution.
And there was an earlier question that's kind of a larger one. How much plastic that we put in the recycling bin is actually recycled?
Well, the statistics around the world are different than what's here in New Jersey, because New Jersey actually has a pretty good infrastructure for recycling, which is fantastic. We can always do better. I don't know the statistics off the top of my head, but generally, I think it's, I know you guys would know better than me, but probably around, I would say 15% gets recycled here in New Jersey. Versus globally, we're looking at probably 8%.
But that's of all consumed, not specifically what goes in the recycling bin.
Mhm.
And then there was some discussion, I guess some of the coffee pods are recyclable or made from recycled materials. So that's something you can check out with your individual companies you purchase from. I'm sure they're out there. And finally, I did just drop into the chat. Tomorrow night, there is a program on spotter and lanternfly from the Are You Ready to Garden series. And so there's the link there. I just dropped in the chat. If anyone wants to participate in that, that's a whole nother type of problem we're trying to tackle in New Jersey.
Please feel free to reach out to me. Check out NewJerseyNoPlastics.org. I can't thank you all enough for joining me tonight and talking about this and this opportunity for Rutgers. As a Rutgers alum, I'm thrilled to be able to give back and participate in this webinar series.
Well, thank you. That was really interesting. It's a lot of practical information, for people to think about. I mean, one, dealing with the new law, but also just thinking about their personal lives and the little things we can do to make a difference. So I will, if you haven't done the poll yet, I'll ask everyone to do that and complete that. Probably be closing that within a minute or two.